Hello, everyone. It's been a minute since the last energy update came out, and we are navigating some very intense energetic times. So I was called to do another one. So, the theme that I'm picking up more than anything right now, as far as general tone, is we're being called to really look at our relationship to chaos around us, external chaos, the energies around, the happenings around. And this is a theme for 2020 as a whole. And it feels like we're really, as we approach the election, really getting to an even more acute point with it. So the first theme is, how do we react when there is chaos around us? Second part is really looking at the concepts and the tendencies around resistance and avoidance. So, as you've probably heard many times, what we resist persists. And I've seen that certainly in my years of being a practicing therapist and of course also as a coach, that energetically what we push against actually creates more pushback. It's sort of this counterintuitive energetic thing that happens. So what we are called to do a lot of times is, when there's so much resistance and so much activation, actually find a way to lean into the thing we are resisting. So more to come on that in a moment. But I've been using, I speak in metaphors, and I've been using a couple when I'm talking with clients lately, and I want to share them here in case they resonate, because sometimes when we have imagery, it just helps us work with our reality in a different way that isn't so tied to the logical linear mind. So what I've been saying is, it feels like I'm at the beach, and it starts off, I'm in the water and it's this beautiful day, and then waves keep coming, and then they kind of start making my legs a little unsteady, and then bigger ones come, and then finally one comes and it knocks me down, and I climb up, and then another one knocks me down, and then we're kind of at the point in this process, again energetically, where it feels, the tone of the collective experiences, it's like waves keep coming and we can't quite get our footing. So it's not like there's this sort of overt sense of immediate danger, but it's kind of that feeling of panic, of I can't catch my breath, I can't get my feet underneath me, which creates a nervous system panic, right? And it goes against what our logical mind often is trying to say, which is, there's no imminent danger. Yes, there's things for concern, but we try to talk ourselves out of what our emotional body is saying. And the fact is, a lot of people are highly activated, not feeling safe, not feeling like they know what's up and what's down, very disoriented, things like that. So it's kind of like we're being, if you ever had a rock tumbler, it's kind of like we're being tumbled in a way to kind of smooth our edges, see what's underneath, things like that, which is a harsh process. So that's some imagery that I've been using. And the other is, as we learn to lean in rather than run from, thinking about it like the eye of the storm. So finding this place of calm, this place of like nothing and everything in the center of this chaotic energy that's happening right now, so that we're not having to spend all of our energy running from a thing, instead being able to sort of like center in it and still be in relationship to it, but in a way that is empowering. So the leaning in concept is a big one that I'm sensing and seeing right now. And it's leaning in, meaning leaning inward. What we as people are really programmed in our humanity to do is to reach outside for security, whatever that is. Things we've counted on before, how we're perceived in the world, beliefs we've carried. For a lot of people, it's very concrete. Like, if I can just make this amount of money, if I can just keep my house clean, if I can just, right? Like all these external things that we can set up to create these rules of, as long as this is happening, I'm okay, it's okay, we're okay. And we're in a time where security is being compromised. Our old sense of security is being compromised to where we're actually being sort of strong-armed inward. So the leaning in, the first one is leaning inside. So really, instead of scrambling out here, settling. It's like this is part of the chaos, but then when we kind of sit back, and you can even do this motion just to feel the difference of, it's kind of an empowered surrender. It's like, okay, and then we go in to see what's there, to as a journey of discovery of what's real inside and where we can find pockets of peace and calm and joy and pleasure and wisdom in the midst of this storm that's raging out here. The other leaning in is what I touched on at the beginning of leaning into the very thing we are resisting with curiosity. So we are quick to judge and label right, wrong, better, worse. And it's part of how we create a sense of safety and certainty in our world. And we are in gray area times. We get to have our convictions, we get to have our values, we get to have our visions, all of that. And we're called to stay curious rather than staying certain. And that requires leaning into the things that are most triggering with curiosity. Like, I wonder why blank, or what is it about this that is so triggering to me? And not stopping at the first line of response, which is usually because it's wrong or because there's harm, because that's obvious. But there's always something more if we stay curious longer. So that's the other leaning in that we're being called to dance with. The other thing that is up, other than the leaning in invitation, is this sense of embodiment with all that we're working with. We're being called to move from the headspace of problem solving to the embodied approach to problem solving and to navigating our lives. And that means asking, how does my body respond to this? And what's happening below the neck? Because when we're anxious, our head likes to take over. And it's our ego feeling a false sense of control, because really it doesn't fix all of the things when we navigate it from a purely logical perspective. So trusting that deep knowing that is embodied is a big part of finding the information and the wisdom and the truth that we need in these times on a micro and a macro level. But the way we can best practice it is on the micro, right? With what's going on in our lives and in our response to what's going on in the world, really sensing inward and letting the body guide, which again is a surrender of the mind and the ego. It's saying, I hear you and I am happy to use your gifts, mind, but you're going to be in the backseat for a moment while I feel what's real, which is a totally different approach. And then we have a bottom-up approach of lived wisdom rather than the mind trying to wrangle whatever inconvenient truth might be in the body or seemingly nonsensical truth, which means the embodied truth doesn't care about our conditioning. It doesn't care about who we've learned to be or what culture says is appropriate. It just knows truth. It's just a compass. So we're being called to trust that more. The other thing that I'm sensing a lot is a real divinely feminine concept, which is instead of charging forward and forcing an agenda and controlling, we're being called to cultivate a receptive state, meaning in spite of all the triggering chaos, we are being called to practice skills around being quiet, being still, being less productive, so that we can actually be more open to the information that wants to flow in. So receptivity rather than fear-based control is a big thing. So the moment we want to charge forward and panic and attack an idea or problem, it's probably a good idea to pause and sense into what's happening and create a place of greater stillness and calm to see if there's something else that wants to come up that will inform the action that wants to happen. This keeps us out of a more reactive approach to life as well. So when we're reacting, we're not really using all of our wisdom and wholeness and divine guidance. We're just reacting, which is a fear-based response usually. So slowing, also creating pleasure in the midst of this is going to also create receptive responses and opening. So again, very counterintuitive. And I'm practicing this myself, but we're going against our conditioning that says if stuff is crazy, we need to be miserable and anxious and controlling. And we're saying, okay, stuff is swirling, so I'm actually going to settle in, I'm going to go in, and I'm going to create some space so that I can know what I need to know, and it can be the truest truth that I can find from a place of wholeness. And then my actions will be much more efficient and effective and aligned from that place. So we're kind of turning everything on our heads right now, and that's requiring a lot of intention and a lot of challenging of those layers of conditioning so that we can show up more empowered rather than being in that state of running from. And so that we can be more rooted rather than grabby and reachy, right? We're using the wisdom that we have. And I very much believe that there's an uprising of humanity that wants to happen now. And it needs to come from that rooted, sort of upward moving energy rather than a panicked reaching. I think we have what we need to find our way, and we're all being called to play our sacred part in that. So as we again navigate this big election that is coming up, I hope these words help create some practices and even just some perspectives to stay more aligned and rooted and empowered as we show up for ourselves, for each other, and for this new world that we're desiring to co-create, because it is very much time and it is requiring a completely different journey to get there than we've ever explored before. All right. Thanks for being along for the journey.